Hello everyone, welcome to the Crystaly Recap channel. And now you're going to hear a short retelling of Malena film. The film is presented as the protagonist's memories of his childhood during World War II. The protagonist, Renato, moves with his family to a small Sicilian town as a teenager. His father gives him a new bicycle, which helps Renato join the company of his classmates. After school, the boys discuss their teacher's daughter, 27-year-old Malena, whose beauty is admired by the townspeople. The boys watch her on the street and share with each other their frank fantasies about Malena, and also admire her beauty despite it. They chase the girl all along the road and look her up and down, inventing fantasies and discussing them among themselves. It is obvious that they like the girl very much, especially Renato. At school, the boys make fun of her deaf father in class. Meanwhile, the girl is imprinted in Renato's memory, and he remembers her every second and thinks about her. After school, the boy starts waiting for Malena at her house to see her closer. One day she starts talking to him and asks him to go shopping. Renato wants Malena to like him, so he decides to take his father's suit and alter it to fit him, for which he is reprimanded. The guy comes to Malena's house every day, watches her and admires her. Malena accompanied her husband to the army and now lives in his house. She tries to find a job, but none of the men will hire her for fear of their wives. Residents spread rumors about her promiscuity. Men try to become her lovers, but Malena remains faithful to her husband. Renato begins to secretly watch her through the cracks in the walls of her house. He buys a record with a song that Malena used to dance to and listens to it in the evenings, imagining different scenes with Malena. This leads to quarrels with his parents. Soon the news of Malena's husband's death in the war comes to town, giving people a new reason to gossip. All the men try to court her, but Malena is adamant. Renato's classmates send a note to Malena's father, their professor, saying that Malena is working as a girl of easy virtue. The professor disowns his daughter, and she is left alone. People's attitude to the girl reaches outright rudeness and vulgar jokes, but Malena ignores everyone. After almost a year of mourning, she tries to establish a personal life with a young officer. On the doorstep of his home, the newly elected mayor encounters a local dentist who also claims his rights to Malena. A fight breaks out, and the police, wives, and ordinary people come running, blaming Malena for all the problems. The townspeople decide to convict Malena for having an affair with a married dentist, but in court it turns out that all the love stories told by the dentist about him and Malena are false. The officer with whom Malena was trying to start a relationship denies that he is in a serious relationship with her. Malena's lawyer, a fat, unkempt man who does not like to wash his face, manages to defend her in court. However, during a visit to Malena, he forces her to have intimate relations with him in order to pay for his services. The passionate lawyer decides to marry Malena, but his mother does not consent. One day, while Renato is spying on Malena, he decides to steal the girl's underwear, which she has hung up after washing. The next day, his parents notice that he has this item and begin to scold him severely, then lock him in his room. Renato is punished so much that his father forbids him to sit at the same table. The next day, a doctor comes to examine Renato. He says that the boy needs fresh air, and Renato immediately sets off for Malena's house. When he arrives at her house, he sees that all the men who drive by Malena's house honk their horns disrespectfully and shout all sorts of nasty things, which irritates the boy. At this time, Renato withdraws from his friends and tries to take revenge on the girl's offenders. He fights with classmates who speak rudely about Malena, secretly spits in the tea of men who insult her, and throws a stone at the glass door of a store in protest. He even goes to church and prays for Malena's well-being, asking the statue of the saint to protect her. But after the lawyer forces Malena into intimacy, Renato breaks the statue's arm as punishment. Soon after, the city is bombed by airplanes, and Malena's father is killed in the wreckage. But the townspeople take this as an excuse for new gossip. And then, driven to despair, Malena, who has neither livelihood nor family, decides to conform to the image that is imposed on her. She cuts off her hair, dyes it brown, and begins to succumb to the advances of men who bring her food. Soon she dyes her hair blonde, meets a local girl of easy virtue, and they go on a date with German officers. Renato goes crazy with passion for Malena and loses consciousness. In his visions, he saves her from various enemies. The parents, sensing their child's illness, try to treat him in various ways. The mother tries to seek help from the church, but to no avail. The father, driven to despair, decides to take him to a brothel, imagining her instead of another girl. People's hatred for Malena grows. When the American troops enter the town, local women take Malena outside and beat her severely. They tear her clothes and cut her hair. The beaten Malena screams frantically at the crowd and runs away. Renato, who follows her, soon sees her in a train carriage leaving the city. Sometime later, Malena's husband, who was thought to be dead, arrives in town. He lost his arm in the war and was a prisoner of war. He tries to find out what happened to his wife, but no one has an answer. Renato decides to plant a letter in the man's hand, in which he writes that Malena was slandered in the city, and she was a faithful wife and loved no one but her husband. Many things happened in her life, but all of them happened when her husband was thought to be dead. At the end of the letter, Renato tells her husband that the last time he saw Malena was when she was boarding a train. A year passes, and to the surprise of the townspeople, Malena and her husband return to the city. When Malena arrives at the market, she sees her abusers among the vendors and buyers. They are pleased to notice that Malena has wrinkles around her eyes, and her figure has changed, and decide to try to talk to her. After a pause, Malena responds to their greetings as if nothing had happened. The tension subsides, and all the women in the market rush to show signs of their affection for Malena. She fills her bags with groceries and heads home. As she walks along the promenade, she drops her bag of oranges. Renato runs over and helps Malena pick up the spilled oranges, timidly touching her hands. This is the first time he speaks to her. He wishes her happiness, and Malena answers him with a sad smile and goes home. Renato rushes to his bicycle and for the first time desperately rides away from the object of his passion. Renato concludes his story about Malena by saying that over the years, he has loved many women who, when they hugged him, asked him if he would remember them. But the only one he remembered for the rest of his life was the one who never asked, and that was Malena. This is the end of the movie. That's all for today. Subscribe and like if you want more videos like this.